Hey guys, and welcome to my first review of Christopher Nolan's Batman series, starting with Batman Begins. Years after the tragic death of both of Bruce Wayne's parents, Batman Begins tells the story of how Batman starts to fight crime in this city and free Gotham City from corruption. This is probably one of my favorite origin stories of any superhero, and this one does it so beautifully. This movie is in no rush at all to introduce us to Batman. It really wants us to understand who Bruce Wayne was, and that's why I think this movie is so special and different from the rest, and you really get to feel for him. And something interesting that this movie does is that it actually doesn't tell an origin story in, I guess, what would be the normal way of telling it, or the most common, which is in chronological order. It tells it out of order, where the film starts one way and there's a random scene of him in jail and you're wondering how did he get there, and then the scene after is telling how he got to that point, and there's random inserts of certain flashbacks throughout the entire movie. One of my favorite things this movie does is when it parallels and juxtaposes Bruce Wayne in the present to how he was as a kid afraid of bats, which I also really like how this movie deals with the themes of fear. Christopher Nolan movies all have a very vivid theme, and you can really tell that, but I thought it was really interesting for this movie, a superhero, to have a theme of having fear and overcoming it. When you think of a superhero and they're not afraid of anything and they're like these superhumans, but this movie really humanizes Batman and shows us Bruce Wayne and how he's scared of bats, and he was able to take that and put it into Batman. This movie has a lot of really cool action and chase sequences, and I really like the scene where Batman is first introduced to the citizens of Gotham City, and it's when he's like just pulling people up and throwing them everywhere, and then one of the guys goes, "Who are you?" And then Batman goes, "I'm Batman." As much as I try, I can't. I don't know how Christian Bale does it, but I really just can't.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
This movie is also dark and intense, but it's still laughable. And I didn't see this movie in theaters. This movie came out in 2005, and I was like 3 years old then, so I obviously didn't see it in theater. But I was researching, and comic book movies back then were like a joke, and I read a lot of articles and saw a lot of videos, and they were basically saying they're like how video game movies are now. And that's just sad, so I'm sorry for you guys that had to like experience the bad comic book movies, because comic book movies are some of my favorites and they're so good now, but this was kind of one of the first ones that was really good. It was very different because as I was reading, it made the movies more human, and it actually showed the man behind the cape and the man behind the mask, because a lot of the movies back then were just about the superheroes and action sequences, and audiences didn't really care about Bruce Wayne in this case, or any other superhero for that matter. So this movie was definitely a change for comic book movies, and also for Christopher Nolan, because before this he had done Following, Memento, Insomnia, but he hadn't really gotten to that big of an audience, and this is really one of those really big blockbusters. And the trilogy as a whole, these movies are some of like the most well-known movies ever, especially The Dark Knight. So this movie definitely changed movies and Christopher Nolan's career, because I feel like because of these movies, he's much more well-known now, and that's good because he's a great director. But like I was saying, I love Alfred in this movie, and Michael Caine plays him really well, and I really like him in this movie. He's like the funny old guy, but it's not like annoyingly funny, and it's subtle. It's funny in a subtle way. Like, I really like Alfred and Bruce's dynamic, especially the scenes where Alfred knows Bruce Wayne is doing something with all those contraptions and machines and stuff that he's getting. So I thought that like that dynamic was really interesting. And throughout the trilogy, I really like them. And speaking of Alfred and Michael Caine, the acting in this movie is outstanding. And I can't make this review without talking about Christian Bale, because obviously he did an awesome job in this movie. And something that he does really well, other than change his appearance for every single role and put his entire like life to a role, is he, in a singular movie, he's able to play different people within the same character, and he does this in a lot of movies that I've seen him do, especially in Nolan films. And it's in this one specifically, he plays Batman, of course, and then he plays Bruce Wayne. But something really interesting is that there's kind of like two types of Bruce Waynes, the one that people see and like the exterior side of him, and then Bruce Wayne himself, and that's like when he's at home and he's alone and nobody's seeing him. And I thought that that was really awesome to do, and you could tell that there's different performances, and Christian Bale's doing all of that, and he's doing an awesome Bruce Wayne. We have Cillian Murphy, and he's also really good in this movie as Scarecrow, and I really like him in the movie. He's obviously awesome in like everything he does. And also Katie Holmes is in this movie, and she plays Rachel, and I really like Rachel in this movie. She's really awesome, and I like her connection to Bruce Wayne. I also specifically like that when they were together, they would show flashbacks of them as kids, which was really awesome, and you got to really understand how they had such a strong bond since they were kids. And she acts as a really good love interest, and I like her character. She's pretty cool. I don't know who I like more that played Rachel, because she was obviously replaced in the second movie, like they casted somebody else. I feel like they both did a pretty good job, so I don't really know who did better, but I just know that in this movie she's really good, and I appreciate her character and her acting. And of course we have Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is always good as well, so this cast is really strong. And also Gary Oldman and Morgan Freeman, and they all play the characters really well. I think the casting choices in this movie are really good, and I don't see it any other way. This movie is also directed beautifully. Christopher Nolan once again did a beautiful looking film. The visuals are awesome. I really like how Gotham looks in this, because it looks realistic and like comic booky and cartoony at the same time, and it's like a perfect combination. But yeah, there's so many cool shots and so many like establishing city shots that are so pretty. And one that I really like is like a wide shot, and it's panning like this around the city, and then there's just a singular black Batman cape dude on the building, and it's just so pretty and awesome. I don't even know what else to say, because everything has been said about this movie. This movie is so freaking good. Batman Begins is such a great beginning to like one of the best trilogies ever, and of course it had to be Christopher Nolan to do it. I also really like the dialogue in this movie, a lot of it, and one of my favorite things is at the end when Batman is telling, I'm not gonna spoil. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have seen this movie, but I still don't want to get into spoilers in case you guys haven't. But at the end, one of my favorite lines is, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. And it's just so good, like, because if you guys know, Batman, like he has like Batman doesn't want to kill anybody. Like he says that's where he like draws the line or whatever. Like that's his rule, I guess, as a superhero. And he's like, I mean, I'm not gonna kill you, but there's no rule saying I have to save you. And I thought that was really funny. I really like that line. I can't believe I forgot to mention the score of this movie is so good. I would play some right now, but I don't want to get copyright because YouTube is sometimes, no offense to YouTube, but I love the score of this movie. Like, it's so good. And you know a score is good if when I finish it, I go and add this to my movie score playlist, which I'll link down below. I really like that playlist. I call it Escape because I escape from the real world and just go into the movie world. And it's just such a beautiful score. It's just freaking epic. It's awesome. I just love this movie so much. And I'm really happy I get to talk about it because I've seen this movie like twice. I saw it a third time now because I used to watch this movie a lot when I was little. It would always be on TV, and I just really appreciate this movie and everything it does, and I really don't have a flaw with this movie. It's paced really well, and the entire time I'm engaged and into it. There's not one moment where I feel bored, and I just really love this movie, and I'm gonna give this movie its really well deserved A+. I keep giving Christopher Nolan movies like really high scores, and I honestly think they all deserve it. This movie is no other, and I'm really excited to talk about The Dark Knight. But next, coming on Friday, is The Prestige, which I'm also really excited to talk about. Like, guys, I'm so excited to talk about that movie. And then The Dark Knight, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more. I'm really excited to talk about more movies and all of that, and I'm getting really pumped for Tenet. I'm really hoping they don't push it, although I'm trying to not keep my hopes up. But yeah, I just really love this movie. And let me know down below what you thought about this movie, if you guys love it, if you don't like it that much, if it's your favorite Batman. I would really like to hear that. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!